So, before I begin, my message is first to the enemy. And that message is simple. When you take this back to your leaders and you tell them that if God is with us, then who shall be against us? That God gives his toughest battles to his strongest soldiers. And when I look out here right now, I see soldiers. I see young ones. I'm not going to say old. I see those with wisdom. Because I don't want to offend anybody. So, if God gives his toughest battles to his strongest soldiers, well then, allow me to introduce myself. My name is General Kenneth Chaimberlain Jr. And we will fight for accountability, we will fight for justice, and we will be the voices for those who have no voice. Now, I originally was going to write something down and then I decided against it. I was going to give you statistics, numbers, speaking to accountability. But then I said, you know what, I'd rather not do that, and I'd rather you just take a walk with me and understand what my family and I have been through since November 19, 2011, and why there's such an urgent need for oversight and accountability. I know that I may say some things that may rub people the wrong way, that they may agree to disagree with me, but as I was told by some of the elders that I look up to, sometimes people have to be rubbed the wrong way or made to feel uncomfortable before they get up and do something. So I would just simply say to people that when I'm speaking to, you don't necessarily have to take my word for it. Google it. The World Wide Web is a wonderful tool. Research it for yourself and draw your own conclusions. But everything that I'm going to say here today, I make no apologies for. None. So now I just ask that, imagine on an early November morning, you receive a phone call from a friend. And when you answer the phone, he says, I think White Plains police officers just shot and killed your father. And I get to the apartment, and it just looks like a scene from CSI, television show. Yellow tape is up and everything. From that point, I go to the hospital. When I get to the hospital, maybe 25, 30 minutes later, a doctor comes out and he says, Mr. Chaimberlain, I'm sorry, but your father has expired. My last vision of my father was looking at him in the emergency room with his eyes wide open, tongue hanging out his mouth, and a bullet hole in it. And this is one of the memories and one of the visions that I think about on a day-to-day basis. The news reports immediately, one of them said, White Plains police shoot crazed men. Another one said, White Plains police shoot and kill hatchet-wielding men. The story was, my father attacked police officers with a hatchet. Then it was a knife. Then it was a hatchet, then it was both. So that immediately said, well, because I know my father, and I know my father is not going to attack anyone. The commissioner immediately went on television and said that the killing of my father was justified. That the police exhausted every avenue they had of non-lethal force before resorting to using deadly physical force. This is all without conducting an investigation. So how do you draw that conclusion? That's sloppy police work in itself. Then we hear the audio. And the audio told an entirely different story. We hear mocking, we hear taunting, or what the police like to use right now, we hear terroristic threats. That's what we hear. Because they instill, first of all, terrorism is a tactic that's used to instill fear. And that's what they did to my father. Because I'm 46 years old, and in my 46 years, I never heard my father ever speak in fear until I heard him on that audio. And for those of you who don't believe what I'm saying, or you're not aware of it, go to YouTube. Type in Kenneth Chaimberlain Sr. audio. It's on there. And I challenge anyone in here to listen to it and tell me you do not hear misconduct and murder. It took over 5 months before the city of White Plains and its elected officials even expressed their condolences to my family. 5 months. Too little, too late. And the only reason they did that is because I made mention of it when speaking to the media. So they felt pressure. And we know that's all it was. The DA, Janet DeFiore, promised a full and fair investigation. Now, how can that happen for those of you who don't know? And again, look it up for yourselves. She is a member of the Chiefs Association. This is an organization of chiefs of police who backed her during her election. Then you have the police department investigating its own office. And then you have that same DA's office working closely with that police department on a day-to-day basis. Conflict of interest all the way around the board. You cannot do that and expect that there's going to be a full and fair investigation. Why haven't our elected officials speak about this? Or why does it fall on deaf ears when our elected officials have to address this type of behavior? Well, I'll say this. Before you vote for your next elected official, ask them these questions. Say, what is your position on employment, child care, senior wellness, education? Ask them all these questions. And I'm sure that they'll answer each one brilliantly. Then say, oh, I have one more question for you. What is your position on questionable police shootings? And I'm sure that most of them will not be able to answer. Our governor, when you had the Newtown shooting, he said the killing was incomprehensible of those children. And 1 month later, he came back with one of the toughest gun restrictions in New York. But when we ask for special investigators or prosecutors in questionable police shootings, he shoots it down. No pun intended. It's not going to happen. Well, my father was a victim of gun violence. It just so happens that individuals that shot and killed him swore an oath to serve him to protect him. So why is one egregious act treated differently than another? My next message really is to the clergy. Now, there have been a number of clergy that have been supporting my family and I from the very beginning. And I salute them. However, there is a greater percentage of clergy who are not. They are not supporting us in these fights. It caused me to have to begin to start to investigate things and look at why these things are happening. So I began to look at Janet DeFiore. I began to look at the clergy. And with Detective Christopher Ridley, those who don't know, shot and killed in White Plains, New York, by Westchester County Police Officers. And in March of 2008, they came back with a zero indictment in that as well, saying that it was Chris's fault. No. He was a police officer doing his job, seeing someone else getting assaulted, and went to intervene and lost his life because he wanted to be a great police officer.
That's right. That's right. He Keep on, brother.
So in March of 2008, and I want you to follow this now, and those of you who are writing it down, take notes and check it out yourself. In March of 2008, they came back with no indictment. The United Black Clergy at that time were very upset. They denounced Janet. They couldn't understand how she didn't come back with an indictment. You know, and they also asked for the DOJ, the Department of Justice, to step in and look into possible civil rights violations in this young man's death. That happened in March of 2008.
Smoke screens.
In August of 2009, that same clergy endorsed Janet DeFiore,
Think about it.
saying that she is approachable, she's reachable, she's for all the people. Although we may agree to disagree, she believes in what's best for everyone. So my question is what has changed between March of 2008 and August of 2009, when then you turn around and you have the killing of a Pace University student, where when they're doing depositions right now, there's blatant cover-ups, it's been proven, and no officers are still arrested. Nobody is in handcuffs. So how could you put somebody like that in office and have them representing you?
Speak.
Where are our more prominent activists, our more notable activists? Why haven't they been out here? You have problems in your backyard and you're not addressing this. But I see them all over the place doing other things. I spoke at the 1199 building in Harlem last December as we honored a young man by the name of Marlon Graham who was shot and killed in the Bronx, New York. And after I finished speaking, I spoke to a gentleman who sat next to me and asked me about what was going on in White Plains. And I said, in Westchester County, you have a different type of animal out here.
Right. That's right.
And people, for some reason, are afraid to speak up. And I said to him, I need your help. And all he said to me was, I'm coming to White Plains. And that man is Dr. Cornell West. Now, I understand that a lot of these organizations, they don't run on water. You have to get funding, you have to get grants, you have to do all of these things. And I plan to eventually open a foundation in my father's name as well. But I will say this, to anyone giving me funding, just because you give me money does not mean I'm beholden to you.
Amen.
It does not mean that if something comes where you need to help the family or call out on it, I will call you out on it. And these are the things that we have to understand. And lastly, I just want to say to the community, we have to get out of this victim mentality that we have.
Yes.
And that means that we're looking at this type of behavior as it's acceptable. It's part of the norm. Remember, we are responsible for the outcomes that we experience. And I believe that just possibly, if that entire building at 135 South Lexington can come outside on November 19th, 2011, Fucker might be alive today.
Right.
He might be, because they may not have acted the way that they did. So this is why we have to understand we do have the power. We do have it. Dr. Martin Luther King said an American institution cannot be expected to function without pressure. And he also said the time comes when silence is betrayed.
Mm-hmm.
But I say silence is a coward's option. And there's no option for mine. So there will be justice for Kenneth Chaimberlain Sr. Thank you.